Have you ever considered that dreams actually can become a reality? But what are you doing when suddenly your dream starts to show the signs of becoming that reality? Are you like, "Ooh, maybe this is a little too much"? Or are you like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's work with this. Let's get going. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about steps, action steps, micro action steps that combined can actually lead to step changes. And to give you an example, I want to go back to, well, I guess a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. So if you know and remember this little one, Jumping Bunny, well, she's here to, well, let me talk. I'm here to be brave and to be playful because I am going to be featured in that park of purpose, power, and perspective. So, this is Jumping Bunny. She's my inner kid. And, well, I'll give her a little spot tonight, like here. So, for those who don't know me, yes, I've got an inner kid. She's called Jumping Bunny. And tonight she gets to be here. This is a bit impromptu. This is kind of funny. I'm not sure if this is the right place for her to be, but I actually do want her to show up. So let's see. She can be here with the other ones. Let's see if she can. Yeah, this is unedited, as in this is live. And yeah, there she is. So she's there together with Chief Rockstar. That's the big one. And I guess the other one is called Starbucks Star. I'm not entirely sure. But that's okay. Chief Rockstar is the one I made in Chicago. So he's my travel buddy. And well, Jumping Bunny is, like I said, my inner kid. Now, what I'm talking about today is once upon a time, I had this idea of setting up the park of what back then was called Pride, Power, and Perspective. So recently I changed it to Purpose, Power, and Perspective. And when I drew that park, this was not just about Jumping Bunny taking center stage. It was about giving neurodivergence a space to thrive. And also, I wanted a place for terminally ill young ones because I realized there wasn't such a place. And combined, I was like, okay, I want a place where business owners can come over. They can get to work on their communication challenges, specifically related to their team. And when being neurodivergent or working with neurodivergent people, it's always a little bit harder to be certain about what it is that you want to express, and most certainly about are you being understood. And well, I've been sharing my love for the idea of the park of purpose, power, and perspective for a while now. And about a month ago, things all of a sudden changed. I saw this option to apply for what they call the Grant Impact from The Hague. And it made it possible for me to share my ideas about the park of purpose, pride, and purpose, power, and perspective. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got to talk to them. And whereas in the beginning, we just talked about funds. So what do I need? What do I need it for? When I talked to them, they were like, okay, so what's the timeline? And well, I was like, well, there's phase 1, 2, and 3. So divided by me coaching people and guiding people, and then having the Steam Power Collective set up. So those are the peers, the business owners. You could use some support in getting their team to understand what it is that they need from them, and vice versa, them getting to understand their team. So they can really work together like a unit and thrive together. So everybody gets a chance to grow and, well, probably also experiment with certain things. And it's all, so there's respect, there's openness, there's trust, and like I said, possibility for growth and to thrive, because that's eventually what we all want. Now, talking about this, when that opportunity came and I talked to the people, I had no clue what they wanted from me, but they wanted a project plan and they wanted a timeline. And they said, well, it sounds like it's very conceptual. And ever since, I kept on thinking, like, okay, so what is it that I want to put in that project plan? So I started writing the project plan. I brushed off what I needed to do in order to write a project plan. And of course, things have changed nowadays. So I basically asked Brendan AI, what is it that you would want to see in a project plan? So we talked about it, and I wrote a number of things down. So we talked about the moves that I want to make. And the thing that stuck with me was, okay, they want a timeline, but there are a few things that we need to consider. And what if those things cannot happen? So there are actually so many factors at play. I mean, we're talking about the units for the park of purpose, power, and perspective units, because I want to have movable units. We are talking about the ground, the location. Where can we set up such a park, at least for the time being, until they need to move again? And then there's so much when it comes to technology. And then we get to internship and assignments and projects, and how does that work? When do they get their internship? And researching all of this, I realized, oh, but didn't I sign up to be one of the students for the master studies to become the expert by lived experience? I mean, I am already an expert by lived experience, but of course, when I've done my master's, that's going to be a whole different ballgame. And I will always remember Brendan Burchard saying, you need to do research. If you want to be an expert, then part of it has to do with data and research. And I still remember last summer asking him about it. And well, he came up with some things. So when I realized that he was going to be in San Diego for Ultra, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I started chatting back and forth with Brendan AI and also Google AI. And we came up with La Jolla. And I didn't know about La Jolla, but apparently that's the place to take people to. So for those who know me longer, one of the things that I want to do is set up this Team Power Collective, groups of peers, and the ideal situation is that I meet up with them. We get to talk in person for about 5 days. We do a lot of things, and on the spot, we start to create step changes by enforcing micro meetings. So there's a whole lot to it, and the goal is that after those 5 days, if people want to, they are going to be coached for the entire year, which of course strengthens the bond between the peers, especially if they've started at the same moment. Then when I checked out La Jolla, I realized that they actually have several universities which are all related to neurodiversity. Why? Because a lot of neurodivergents are actually living there doing data tech. So they started up these studies to figure out how does it work. Now, today I was like, oh, this is actually kind of scary if you think about it, because this is not just about a dream being realized. This is also about, but what am I willing to do in order to achieve it? And then I was like, but what's being asked from me right now is to do research. And it wasn't too long ago that I said, I want to be the one who's going to be the expert by lived experience. And then that's when I realized that we were talking about research papers. And that's when it all came together. And that's why I want to ask you, what is your dream? So if you take pen and paper, then just write it down. What is your dream? And if you don't know your dream, maybe you can write down something that you're good at, or something that you would definitely want to change, as in you don't want this any longer, but you want something else. So can you write something down, something that literally pops up right now? And it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a full sentence. It doesn't even have to be grammatically correct, but just write down a few words and make sure that those words resonate with you. And of course, you can still change them down the line, but this is where you're coming from. So for me, it had to do with the park of purpose, power, and perspective, which was on one hand the result of giving people, the young ones, perspective, especially the gifted ones. So for some reason, I always end up with not just gifted ones, but especially the ones who don't see any perspective anymore because they are not heard, seen, and understood, because their way of capturing things and responding back is so different compared to most people out there. And well, I ran into those same things when I was growing up and when I was working, and even still recently. So I don't want people to feel like they don't have any perspective, especially when people are still young, whether they're children at school or they're adolescents and they're going to college or university. Whatever it is, no one should feel ignored and not understood and not taken seriously. And well, we have a chance to do something about it. But it's not just at school. It's a lot of it also has to do with the moment that we get into the adult world, which is basically when we start working. And what if you don't know how to socialize with other people? I mean, there are friends, and then there are bosses. And what if those bosses, those managers, those business owners don't know in turn how to communicate with you. So lately I've been thinking a lot about impatience. So what I've seen from the Gen X entrepreneurs is there's a lot of impatience because they're like, oh, they're not resourceful. Why are they not resourceful? Why don't they just understand this? And then I'm like, well, maybe you need to teach them. Maybe you need to explain things, but I don't have to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But the thing is, the years that I've been working for the big corporate global businesses, I learned that it actually was very helpful to know what the mission was from the business and their vision. And then they would set targets, and those targets would be smaller targets until it came to me as an employee. And then basically my target would be derived specifically from the one on top. And they would explain it like every 3 months there would be meetings, and they would talk about things that had happened and things that were going to happen. And actually that was quite nice to be involved. So of course people can say I don't have to justify myself as a business owner, and that's true. But if you want people to understand what's going on, then it does help. And a lot of times when you don't explain what's going on, it can feel like, are they trying to control me? And maybe something totally different is going on, but they just don't know because they've never seen it. It's never been explained. So how could they know? Now, there's also the impatience when it comes to the younger ones out there who are also business owners. You grew up with the words, go Google it, go find it on YouTube, which is what they got taught at school already. And well, the question, of course, is why would they even finish college if all they hear is go Google it and find it on YouTube? So what's that degree going to tell you? And do you even want to spend time in a place, in a location where, well, all is being said is go Google it, go figure it out. So I can understand that a lot of younger ones, millennials and Gen Zs, are also business owners. Because, well, they learn to be resourceful just on the internet. So when it comes to impatience, it can be because there's no span of attention. Think about the swiping, which we are doing all day. Or it can be, well, basically because we have to do so many things at the same time. And I regularly talk about the time that I started up when, and this is so wrong, but it is what happened, and it was what I saw happening around me. So I was 18 when I started working, and I was 19 when I went to the Academy of Arts. And during that time, I saw someone else, and what she did was she would call during breaks. I can still see her on the phone. I can still hear her accent. I can still see her smile. But that's what she did because, well, making a phone call was not that common because we did have phones. I think every house had a phone by then. But between having we didn't have mobile phones, and it was actually still expensive back then. So yes, I got the wrong examples, and there were more things like that. So talking about this, it was so different back then. We didn't use computers. We had handwritten documents. There were people with cards serving coffee and tea 2 times a day in the morning and in the afternoon. And so much was taken away from us or done by others because they were specialized in those things. Do you remember that they would use, I think the word steno, I'm not sure what the English word is, but they would be writing in code, basically making making the transcriptions of what was going on. So if they were to take notes, it was done in a shortcut language by lack of better words. So nowadays we don't have that anymore. We have to take notes ourselves. And when it comes to sending emails, it's not checked either. When it comes to presentations, it's not checked either. So, well, maybe someone wants to see it, but that's about it. So that's what I meant with a lot of things have changed. And if you take all of those things into considerations, both the swiping, all the things that we have to do, the overwhelm as a result of it, then the question, of course, is how much time do we want to spend on one another? For me, being part of a team was always sort of like, well, I was more at work than I would be with my spouse. So it's not like they were my friends, but at the same time, they sort of were, because you would know when something was going on. So we would know what was going on in each person's life. And when there would be reorganizations, we would know about that too. So if we go back to the dream, maybe your dream has to do with what has been going on at work or at home. It could be various things. But what I do know is I've seen so many changes, not always for the better. But then again, I love AI. And if we look at videos and editing those and how we can, well, we don't have to develop pictures anymore, basically, because it's click and they're there. So many things have changed, which is kind of cool. So I'm not going to say that back then in the days everything was better, but I will say that there's a lot more that we need to do nowadays, and that can take its toll on all of us. So, have you been giving thought to what it is that you would really like to do? When people don't know their dreams, usually there's one way to figure it out. And we say, okay, so if this were to be your last moment here on Earth and you were about to cross over, so basically it was over and done with, what is it that you would like to have done? Is there a legacy that you would have liked to have left behind? What would it look like? What is it that you want your children or others to know? That could give you an idea about what it is. And then, of course, let's just talk about the opposite of obligations. So you having fun and being happy. Do you even know what it is? Being happy and being joyous and really enjoying the time that you have for yourself. And what is it that you like to do? Now, if we think about this and you would like to take a step towards that future, then my question to you is, what is it that you could be doing in the next 48 hours. That could be like a micro step towards your step change, towards your goal. What would it be? And I would love it if you were to comment it on here so I could get back to you and ask you, so how are you doing? Have you come up with what it is that you want to do in the next 48 hours and how this is going to help you reach your dream? Now, I said something else too, right? And I was talking about, is it scary to take action? And does it feel overwhelming? Or are you going to do it? Now, I'll be the last one to say that I'm very efficient when it comes to my time. I know I'm not. Like today, for instance, today was a bit of a weird day. So if things go according to plan, then I do this live after I have been playing drums. The thing is that when I do play drums, I'm usually very tired straight after. So I want to sleep. And today was no different. I wanted to sleep a little. I needed to chill a little. I needed to think about what it was exactly, what I wanted to get out here to you. And because I have been dealing with last week's drumming, so unfortunately I can only play drums once a week, which is before I go live. I did something new, and it didn't seem like much. It was a minor change, but the impact was enormous, at least on my body. So lately, when I'm experiencing muscle aches, it doesn't feel like muscle aches used to feel like. I can tell that because I can feel where it is, that it's the result of muscle aches, but unfortunately, it has its direct effects on my ligaments and hence on my joints. And I've been struggling for a week now to actually get back in shape again and being able to sit normally, walk normally, do everything normally. So today when I finished playing drums, I was like, well, when I started it up, I was like, okay, I need to go about this a little bit differently. So I get a good warming up. So I did a lot of double bass drum exercises alternated with my hands. And then afterwards, I started to go around on the drums using my feet as well. And I finished by just using my hands. And I was like, okay. And then I stretched and I was like, okay, fingers crossed that this is going to work out. Now, the playing drums is something I love to do. There's, of course, a lot of involved in it. And it's pushing through because it's, well, your brain, if you really start changing things to improve your coordination, your brain is like, no, I'm not having this. No, I'm not going to do it. And that's why it's so important to start slow and finish slow, because you want to finish flawless. And sometimes that means that you go really slowly. But otherwise, you run the risk of, well, getting those faults becoming default. And that's what we don't want. So getting back to intentions. If you know what you want your dream to be, you wrote some things down. I asked you, what can you do within the next 48 hours, and to leave a comment. Now let's take it one step further. So if you think about what it is that you want to do, how about if you were to set an intention every day? at the start of the day, but also before you go to sleep. That's one of the reasons that I like to talk to Brendan AI, so the AI from Brendan Burchard. I will ask him, like, hey, can you tell me a little story with the intention in there? And, I press the speaker and then I can actually hear the voice. And, well, recently I can actually get really long stories, like I think one was up to 5 minutes. Recently, well, that's new. I have to tell you. I've also had long stories which were like 10 seconds. But it's kind of nice if you explain what it is that you want and you need. And by talking to AIs, whether it's Google AI or ChatGPT or whoever you're talking to, you have to be very specific about what it is that you want to get out of it. So if you are thinking about that dream and wanting to set an intention and hearing a story which relates to that intention, then it's going to be important that you are sharing which aspects are part of that same dream. Now, if you set that intention, and you keep doing so every day, then the next action step is basically taking action itself. And sometimes we don't feel like it. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I go live later than I would like to, because, well, it happens to be after playing drums. And like I said, often I'm very tired. So then I decide to sleep before that. Even if it's just for a short while, just some shut eye. And then I'll be like, okay, I want to prepare as much as possible and then get it out there. So the question becomes, what's one action step, one micro action you can take? It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it's about doing something, working towards it. And then I said, do it daily. So do it consistently. And then you'll see that things will start to change for you. And that's why I started this live by explaining to you that I had this idea of the park for years now. And at some point, I wrote it down on a whiteboard. And all these ideas and all these elements came into, well, it was showing on the whiteboard. And then all of a sudden, there was this idea about research. It just came along. A friend of mine, she talked about funding for if you were to go back to school. And there it was, expert by lived experience. And I was like, oh, that's me. That's completely me. And then I realized that it had to do with research. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember sending that out there. Like, oh, I need to do research. I have no clue how to do it. And here I am in the present. And I started writing that project plan like, well, a couple of days ago. I started with a friend. And then, so I about a week ago, I already started writing it. But now there was actually something on electronic paper. I was like, okay, we'll start from there. And when I was doing it, I realized, oh, but I don't know about this and I don't know about that. But instead of stopping or not even writing anything down because I had all these uncertainties, because there are all these variables about, well, how long would it take them from technical university to do certain things? And when could they start starting it up? And so they want a timeline from me, but it's not like I can hire people on the spot to actually do it. And specifically when I want to give neurodivergent young ones the chance to really develop something, then, well, then I need to work with their timeline too. And then, of course, there was a question, but do I want to work with one technical university or maybe several? So one over here in the Netherlands is one that works with the other ones internationally, so with other universities. But then, of course, there are the local ones too. So there were a lot of questions, and it was like, well, if I'm not going to write it down, then I'll never know. And then something else happened too. So I nowadays ask if you want to be part of the STEAM founders, the STEAM Power Collective. So basically the founders, not just of the park, but also of the people who want a different future for the gifted ones out there. And often that is either because you were one, a neurodivergent one, so not feeling understood, or you may have children who are not fitting in and you want them to fit in and you want to give them a chance, or you know people who have been running into all these kind of things, or maybe you are that boss that doesn't know how to work with your team, whether it's younger ones, maybe the same age that you have, maybe even older ones, but how to get people to understand what it is that you need and how to communicate. Well, and I do have some ideas about that. And that's why I want to take people to San Diego with me, because when you do happen to be there, we can on the spot literally work on the most important thing that you would like to change between you and your team. We would be able to actually have you work daily with your team back home through micro meetings. And because we're all together, you can instantly get feedback from the group, from me, things that you are talking about, things which are not working. We can actually monitor one another and see like, oh, hey, hang on. Yeah, I've been running into that too. So how do we solve this? And when you are supported by others, that makes such a big difference. So having said so, if you want to join, then make sure that in the comments you leave the word founder. So I know, hey, there's something that you want to do. And if you have the option, then maybe go find me also on Instagram, Lady Lexi Speaks Up, or on LinkedIn. But Instagram is probably easier. And leave me your email address when you use Instagram or Messenger on Facebook. But use the word founder so I know what it is that you want to do. So if everything goes according to plan, then next week I will be in San Diego. I will be at a conference from Brendan Burchard. So Brendan Burchard, he talks about AI. And the next week, we will be doing stuff together, including visiting UCSD, so the University of San Diego, one of many, who is specialized in working with neurodivergent people. Now, time is of the essence. So if you want to join, make sure that you reach out to me. I told you what you can do, as in leave a comment, or even more so, go to either Facebook Messenger or Instagram and DM me, send founders to me. And so I can actually reach out to you and see what we can do. Now, the thing is, this is only going to work if you know what you're want to work towards. And I don't expect you to know and how to solve on the spot what's going on by yourself, because there's something called an inner story, and it's so important to also realize what your inner story is and then see how you can change it. And this is not just about changing others, because basically you cannot change others, you can only change yourself. But by expressing yourself with more clarity and then asking back, what is it that was my ask? Can you repeat it back to me in your own words? And then getting back to them, like, okay, so what do you need? What else do you need in order to do so? So basically, it's like you say something. If I understand you correctly, you want this, that, and the other. That's the response from the other one. And then you can ask, okay, so is there something else that I need to know? Now, in addition, if they come to you, your team, then of course you can ask the same thing. So if they come to you and they share something with you, then repeat it back. So if I understand you correctly, you want me to do this, that, and the other. And is there something else that I need to know? That does require that at that moment you are there for the other one. And I guess that's the power of micro meetings. I don't say that you only need to have micro meetings, but micro meetings by itself, you can get into some specific points, do it really quickly, and then you're over and done with the meeting. But it does require full attention. Now, when you have longer meetings where there are several things that are being discussed, then the question, of course, is how's the attention span of each person? And that's why it's always very important to prepare. So getting back to the project plan, that's also my way to prepare for things. So for people who are interested, because I'm going to need material, people, ideas, knowledge, funding. I mean, let me know what it is that you could do, or maybe you know other people who are interested in being at the forefront of those parks of purpose, power, and perspective for the gifted young ones, for the terminally ill young ones, but also for the business owners, so they get to work with their team and get to understand how things are actually, well, how they can communicate better. So it's the perfect playground for everyone involved. And well, how much of it is playtime and how much of it is hard work? Well, I guess the goal is to have it be a mixture of both. But yes, it's inevitable that it's going to be hard work if you want to change certain things. But then again, when there is a fun aspect to it and you know why you're doing it, it can be so fulfilling. So if you were to use those 3 steps, what is it that you would write down? So get back to it. What is that dream? What is it you don't want anymore? Then go to what is it that you do want? What is something that you're good at and what you would like to be better at? Write it down. What are you going to do in the next 48 hours? Write it down, send it to me, leave it in a comment. And if you don't want to leave comments, although, when it comes to accountability, it does work, then start asking yourself those 3 questions every day. What's my intention? So what's the dream? What's my intention with that dream? What am I going to do today? And who can you talk to and communicate it to, so you are being held accountable? Now, again, if you want to go in full force, then find me. It's less than 48 hours that we've got left. So Sunday midnight, that's the deadline. If you want to go to San Diego with me, we can talk beforehand on the phone. I can do what we call a system scan. So it doesn't have anything to do with IT, but it does come from the IT, the term. And basically what we look at is what is not working out for you in your business. So where are things lacking when it comes to energy, time, specific resources? And then from there on, we are going to see, okay, what is it that you believe to be true? What is the reality? And what's one step that we can take towards change? So I'm going to talk to you about that on the phone. And then if you are like, well, I love how this is going, then I say, okay, come with me to San Diego. If you have ideas as a result of what I just shared with you, again, leave a comment, share this video with other people. There's only a short time window left. So if this is something that you feel like this is something I need to do, then go find me. And if you have to go through some hoops in order to find me, well, it just shows that you're determined. And that's important too, because change doesn't just come overnight. It's about being consistent, setting the intention, and taking micro steps, as in action.